war of the Porygon Driftblim, Tailwind versus Trick Room. Maybe, Driftblim does a run taunt, that type of thing.
Can't get taunt.
Can't get taunt.
Can't get taunt.
No. So maybe he's working with the Buzzwole to be able to take it out sooner.
All right, we see Tapu Lele and Buzzwole flexing for the camera. Leads for Brandon. Tapu Koko and Porygon 2 leads out for Max. So here we go. Game 1 of round 2. Again, a special shout out to Thunder Jim, Chris Clanton, the TO, for allowing us, as well as Richard Wolkowski, who is the other TO of this tournament, for allowing us to stream and broadcast this to you guys back at home. Porygon 2 got a download boost. I actually missed what download boost it was.
I didn't see it either, but
judging by it, I think it might. I don't know,
because one is defense, one is special defense. So it's hard to tell. Tapu Lele keeps Portland weird by getting the battlefield all weird.
Great throwback to the city itself.
Seen it twice now. We can keep Portland weird all day. In this case, I think Buzzwole's at a great spot. Unless there's I don't think there's anything that really it's really threatening it other than its own Lele attacking it. It seems like it can do a lot of damage to Porygon. It can do a lot of damage to Tapu Koko with a poison jab. On the other side of the field, I'm not sure he's going to keep that Tapu Koko in, especially with Psychic Terrain up. He's going to want to reset that. Potentially switching in and using a Trick Room here looks like it's potentially a strong play for him.
And Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch here. Going to switch out after hitting that Tapu Lele. And Tapu Koko now gets to decide who is going to replace it on this weird battlefield. You're right, just preserving that Tapu Koko to bring back that terrain later on. Arcanine comes in right now, going to intimidate this Buzzwole. Going to try to weaken it a little bit and not have it be able to do as much damage. Possibly to this Porygon 2, as Tapu Lele goes for a taunt here. Going to hit that Porygon 2 with that taunt. Not going to allow it to set up Not going to allow it to set up Trick Room, but instead we see Buzzwole miss the Stone Edge, as Porygon 2 is actually a physical Porygon 2. Goes for a return onto that Tapu Lele, and Tapu Lele hangs on.
Wow, what a good read on the Stone Edge, but unfortunate that it misses. But I guess a good play for Max to just get the Tapu Lele whittled down a little bit, maybe setting himself up for Porygon late game. That Volt Switch damage looks like it could have been Specs. It looked like it could have been a stronger move than what we normally see. It did almost half damage with Psychic Terrain up. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays a part later in the game, especially if he can't get Psychic Terrain up reliably. And now we're looking at Buzzwole -1. Arcanine being able to do a lot of damage to Buzzwole or KO the Tapu Lele.
Tapu Lele now switches out. Going to switch into Arcanine. Going to go for the Intimidate onto that Porygon 2 and that Arcanine as well. If that is a physical Arcanine, we haven't seen it just yet. We saw physical. We've seen special. We've seen all sorts of Arcanine today, and it's only round 2. Arcanine over on Max's side now. Going to go for the Flare Blitz. Going to target down that Buzzwole. Buzzwole is pretty bulky. You see it flex and going to be able to take that pretty well. About 50% damage right there. Buzzwole now goes for a Poison Jab, targeting down this Porygon 2. Going to do not much damage, but does get the poison. All right.
Interesting to see that not using a fighting move.
Yep, and Porygon 2 now gets to go for an Ice Beam into that Buzzwole slot. Probably expecting a switch from that Porygon 2 into possibly Tapu Koko.
Yeah, I think that's what he wanted to do. Looked like he was trying to do that first turn. Like you said, very offensive, very, I guess, confident in what
trying to get those reads.
Yeah, getting those reads in. And I think that Stone Edge was one. I think that Poison Jab was one. It did pay off with the poison. That's going to help, especially against Porygon 2, which really tough to take down. That little 12% each turn will help. But Buzzwole, at the cost of it, it loses a lot of health. It's very specially durable. So in this case, either Porygon or Arcanine could take it out as it flexes. It just stands out so much on camera. It's a little arm. But looking at the state of the game, Arcanine here on Brandon's side looks to be switching out here. Yep,
going to switch out. Going to go into Garchomp. Possibly risky if Max decides to go for a read here and goes for an Ice Beam in that slot. Arcanine gets to go before everything else. Going to go for the Flare Blitz. Going to hit this Buzzwole and pick up the KO. So unfortunately, Buzzwole is my favorite Ultra Beast, but I've always seen it get knocked out. Unfortunately.
Maybe we don't see it very much around here.
Fair enough. Porygon 2 goes for the return right here into that Garchomp. Going to take some rough skin damage right there. Not something that I'd expect to say much commentating all these matches, actually.
Yeah.
A little bit of recoil from that rough skin, a little bit of damage from that poison as the Porygon 2's taunt wears off. So now this Porygon 2 can possibly set up, but Brandon can, of course, just switch back in that Tapu Koko and go for a taunt. or
Tapu Lele.
the Tapu Lele
Yeah.
to go for the taunt.
Or he could potentially Tectonic Rage here and knock out the Porygon from this range. The Arcanine can't switch in to intimidate it, so he's in a good position to be able to take out the Porygon or force a switch. We know Coco's in the back, so he only has one more option in there to switch into. We did see in team preview that there's a Celesteela, so that's a risk you take here. But he switches an Arcanine, and I mean I think honestly at this point, doubling the Porygon 2 seems like a really smart play. Flare Blitz and Tectonic Rage. If the Tectonic Rage is
Not
Celesteela,
even, just maybe go for... if he switched in the Tapu Lele, I'd say just Earthquake yourself.
Well, no, potentially, but at this point, like if the Porygon 2 switches into Celesteela, he covers both bases, gets damage, and the Arcanine isn't doing anything to him here. So he has to... So in the case of Max, he has to switch Arcanine out. Porygon 2 either feints or switches into Celesteela. Very, very good offensive positioning here for Brandon. I like what he did. In Max's case, if you're looking at it from his side, just got to play really smart defensively here. Figure out what you have to sacrifice in order to get yourself back in the game next turn or the turn after. It's going to be kind of a long, winding battle to get yourself in a position where you can pounce on the opponent. But, yeah, it'll take a little bit of time.
Max switches out the Arcanine, not going to want to get knocked out. Celesteela comes in, possibly to take an Earthquake, possibly take a Tectonic Rage. We'll see what happens here. Brandon goes for the Tectonic Rage right now. We'll see who it's going to target down. Hopefully it's that Porygon 2. If it's that Celesteela, great switch right there from Max. As we do see Garchomp now go for the Tectonic Rage. Where's it going to go? Where's it going to go?
Right at the Porygon.
All right, right at the Porygon. All right, that's going to do a good amount of damage to that Porygon. You know, Tectonic Rage is one of those moves that Garchomp's always wanted.
Yeah.
A single target, very powerful ground-type attack. Just straight up picks up the KO on that Porygon too. We see why. You know, you can use a ground-type attack without damaging your own partner. And Arcanine goes for a Flare Blitz into that slot. That's Celesteela taking a lot of damage from that. So good call from Brandon.
It was a really good call from Brandon, but in Max's part, you had to kind of see that coming. It was he had a double up on the Porygon. If he KOs the Porygon with Tectonic Rage, the Flare Blitz goes off on Celesteela. So why not switch the Porygon into Celesteela is my question for him if he is playing that again. But in that case, you know, I think in this case, I think Brandon takes the game from here. It seems very straightforward in his end. But yeah, learning down the road here that the Tectonic Rage does do over 50% to him. Maybe that was a calc he didn't know. But in this case, it's I don't know if he has a way to, unless it's HP Ice Tapu Koko.
I mean, the Dazzling Gleam will also do a lot of damage to that Garchomp as well.
And it may be, like we know earlier, it might be Specs, so that could be the changing point of this one. But I'm not 100% sure that he has a way to knock out all of Brandon's Pokemon with what he has left.
The Arcanine is still fairly safe. I think right now Max has to pick his poison, right? Garchomp or Arcanine. You got to do a lot of damage to one Pokemon right now and then see what happens. Arcanine's a big threat. Garchomp is also a big threat, so it's a tough call for Max.
Yeah. And it's a tough call for Max, especially when you're put in a position with somebody who plays so offensively. And it's hard to, like, I don't know. You can't really feel sure about how he's playing.
Garchomp switches out, going to go into Tapu Lele. Going to replace the terrain, and, you know, just sacrifices Tapu Lele most likely. Tapu Lele is very low in health. Max still has one more Pokemon in the back, right? Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch in that Arcanine slot. Thanks to the Psychic Terrain now, not going to be able to do as much damage as Max probably had hoped for, and this Celesteela looks like it might get KO'd.
Yeah.
Well, the Intimidate is pretty nice.
Yeah, the Intimidate's good here. It depends on if it reduces the damage on the Celesteela. If he did go for that, we'll find out really quick.
Yep, and Arcanine does go for the Flare Blitz here. Going to target down that Arcanine slot instead. Okay, probably expecting that Celesteela to maybe protect itself. Not very effective damage, as Celesteela does Celesteela things. Going to go for a Leech Seed here onto that Tapu Lele, and that's going to knock out that Tapu Lele at the end of this turn.
Yeah, and that's a big downside, I guess, to making hard reads on your opponent is sometimes it backfires and they just, you know, move with the Celesteela that otherwise probably could have fainted or come really close. And in this case, Max ended up taking out a free Pokemon. Now it's down to 2. If he wanted to, he could recycle Intimidates by switching, you know, maybe sacrificing Koko if he wanted to. But it gave him a chance at this game. It definitely brought him back in. It really depends on, again, calc.
It also depends on what the Garchomp has.
Yeah.
We've only seen Tectonic Rage, so it has Earthquake. We don't know any of its other moves, right?
Yeah.
Also, that Tapu Koko in the back is going to be exerting a lot of pressure, so I think actually Max has turned this around and has actually taken the advantage here because of his way of preserving Pokemon thanks to those Volt Switches.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's basically if he gets rid of the Arcanine, the Celesteela wins the game. And the Arcanine, if it doesn't have a resist berry or the super berries, like,
Pinch berry.
Pinch berry, that's what
Yep.
the term is. If it doesn't have one of those, then I don't know if he has any way to keep it alive long enough. That Volt Switch or the Thunderbolt could knock it out from here. The Volt Switch did a lot even outside of electric terrain. In electric terrain, that might knock out from this range.
Yeah, we see Brandon taking a lot of time to make his move right there, almost running down the entire timer. As Celesteela protects, not going to want to get KO'd and just see what's going to happen here. Garchomp does reveal the fact that it does have Fire Fang as Arcanine gets to go for a Flare Blitz. The Arcanine on Max's side goes for a Flare Blitz onto that Garchomp. Going to take Flare Blitz recoil. Oh, gets a burn! One of the side effects of Flare Blitz is actually the fact that it could possibly burn. So that's huge.
Wow. That ends up being a big changing point if Coco were able to get it in with Dazzling Gleam, it might be able to KO from this range now if it wouldn't have before.
Yeah, Max has this in the bag.
Yeah, it looks like Max has got this now. Looked like for a while he wasn't going to, but that play with taking out the Lele for free, and then now with Celesteela being where it's at, I don't think there's a way you can lose it, especially with the burn Garchomp.
Yeah, and going into Game 2, I know we're looking pretty far ahead, but Max has all the pieces to seal the deal here. Garchomp burn, Arcanine most likely going to get KO'd by a Volt Switch from the... Yeah, I mean, he's just going to Earthquake his own Arcanine right here.
No fear.
That could activate a berry if it has a berry.
Oh.
Hangs on. Does Arcanine have a berry?
Does it?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Does knock out the Arcanine on the other side. Arcanine does have a berry. Okay.
Pinch berry.
All right. But still, Tapu Koko in the back is going to be the huge deal. Maybe if it gets a critical hit. But a lot of Flare Blitz recoil. Nope, not enough. Yeah, so I think Celesteela is just going to do Celesteela things.
Yeah, he would have to miss the Leech Seed there and then hope for a lot of things to happen. So the Fire Fang on the Garchomp is interesting to note for next game. It does give him an option versus the Celesteela. Maybe Max doesn't bring it in that case. He does have a lot of reason to bring it, even with the Fire Fang on Garchomp, but it gives him just a little bit more reassurance in a situation like this where, maybe if he has one turn go his way, in Brandon's case, he can put a little more Fire Fang damage on the Celesteela, and now it's knocked out.
We've seen Earthquake, we've seen Fire Fang. Maybe he has a setup move. I know he enjoys that Swords Dance Garchomp. But unfortunately, Tapu Koko does get to come in and gets to, well, unfortunately for Brandon, Tapu Koko gets to come in, set up the electric terrain, and going to be able to go for Volt Switches. Even for a Dazzling Gleam right here, it's pretty set that Max is going to take this one. Going into Game 2, Brandon played super hyper offensively in the leading turns, and that just unfortunately did not pay off for him.
Yeah, it didn't pay off for him in the end. But I think maybe that there's one or two places where he could have made a better play, but yeah, it did win him a couple turns, and I thought earlier that he swung the momentum, but maybe losing the Buzzwole so early and then getting Lele weakened so early, something he has to watch for. Maybe scaling back the offense just a tad, just to be able to preserve some Pokemon for later in the game.
Yep, and now the Dazzling Gleam connects into Arcanine, not very effective damage. A little bit of chip damage right there as we have Arcanine go for a Flare Blitz. Going to target down that Tapu Koko, but again, that's most likely not going to be enough to pick up the KO. Not at all. Not even close, and Arcanine just getting so much closer to knocking itself out thanks to that recoil damage. Unfortunate that Brandon doesn't have the firepower to kind of seal the deal here. But like we said a couple turns ago, Max had all the pieces he needed.
Yeah, he did. And that he was able to rebound from that position where he lost the Porygon and then switched into Celesteela. That was a little bit unfortunate, but he ended up rebounding from it. I think he could have actually maybe sealed this game a little bit further without taking the damage on Celesteela. But ended up not mattering. I don't think the burn on Garchomp made a difference. Seems like he took it pretty confidently, even with a play that could have been optimized. So it's like going into Game 2, you got to wonder, does Brandon have anything for it?
Keys to Game 2 right now. Brandon needs to maintain his offensive hitters. Losing Buzzwole like that, you got off. He could have had a great lead with that Stone Edge into that Arcanine slot, but unfortunately it missed. Stone Edge is pretty shaky.
Yeah,
unfortunately, right? And also, he kind of got too ahead of himself with those reads. Poison Jab into that was just into that Porygon 2, expecting maybe a Tapu Koko switch to take a fighting type attack. You kind of play too far ahead.
Yeah, it was one step too far.
Yeah.
So scale it just a little bit back and you might have it. Yeah, it's kind of a sweet spot it felt like he could have hit there. If he hits the fighting type move on Porygon, maybe he doesn't need to blow his Tectonic Rage, He could have rebounded with Tectonic Raging and Arcanine later in the game to compensate for missing Stone Edge.
Yeah.
So it's something he could have just done a little bit more, just kind of get yourself in that right range of reading the opponent. When to read and when to just make the straightforward play.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So, going again into team preview, the teams, Brandon going to be running Drifblim, Tapu Lele, Metagross, Garchomp, Arcanine, and Buzzwole. Max running the Tapu Koko, Celesteela, Porygon 2, Arcanine, Gigalith, and Garchomp. Max really went for the more offensive, Max also had the Trick Room option in that Porygon 2, just in case Brandon decided to go for the Drifblim Tailwind mode.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he wanted a Drifblim here, especially it's not doing a lot offensively. It doesn't have it doesn't hit anything super effectively. It does get super effectively hit by Tapu Koko and Gigalith. Doesn't have much of a reason to bring it. In the case of was it Metagross? Maybe a little more reason. Still gets hit very hard by Arcanine, Garchomp, and Tapu Koko. Not sure it's something he brings here. It seems like those 4 he was pretty set on. In Max's case, maybe looking for any changes. But the 4 he brought were really solid. He could bring the Gigalith if he wanted to go full Trick Room mode and go a little harder on it. But outside of that, I don't know if he switches anything up. No reason to really bring the Garchomp here. Especially versus, it does help versus the Arcanine. I don't know. It seemed like they brought the 4 that probably most optimal for them. But if we do see a change up here, maybe we see Metagross.
Arcanine and Tapu Lele leads out for Brandon. Going to change it out. No Buzzwole just yet. As Max going to go ahead and lead Tapu Koko and Celesteela. Again, the Psychic terrain is going to be the one taking precedent, thanks to the fact that Tapu Lele is slower. Arcanine does get the Intimidate off onto that Celesteela to prevent much damage from those heavy slams, possibly making a huge difference between a KO on that Tapu Lele versus not a KO on that Tapu Lele.
Yeah, it could be a big difference. But if he does double into it here, obviously gets it. There's no way for him to prevent damage other than protecting from the Tapu Koko. It looked like it was doing a lot last game. I still want to go with the guess that it's specs based on the damage we saw. Kind of hard to do the 40% outside of Electric Terrain with the Volt Switch otherwise to a Tapu Lele or anything similar. But in this case, yeah, free damage off for Max puts him in a good position to chip or chunk something here. And then switch into something else. That's what really, really handy here. It looks like we're seeing a lot of the reason why he's running such a offensive Tapu Koko.
Yeah, and Brandon, again, taking a lot of time to make his moves. Really trying to think this one out. He's gone down to the wire really a lot of times. That's just goes to show how much thought he's putting into each of these turns. Arcanine switches in, going to get the Intimidate off onto Brandon's Arcanine and the Tapu Lele. So, yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's a step ahead.
Another Volt Switch right there, going to preserve that terrain for later on. Going to hit that Tapu Lele, going to do about 40% damage to its health. As we see now, Max gets to decide what's to switch in. And one of the great things about Volt Switch is just it can shift the momentum so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's especially here where you get an Arcanine, put back Celesteela, and now you're in a really good spot against that Lele again.
Yep. As Lele now goes for a Psychic into that Celesteela. Not very effective, but a lot of damage. We do see the Life Orb, so a much more offensive Tapu Lele than we saw from round 1 coming from Alberto Lara. Flare Blitz from that Arcanine. Going to hit that Arcanine. Not very effective damage. Again, intimidated as well. So, boy, these are some pretty... It's a defensive battle right now, right?
Yeah. No, it's a defensive battle, and it doesn't really work in Brandon's favor the way he's been playing the game. He's been playing much more offensive, and Max is showing that defensive switching, while maintaining some offensive pressure, is very good. The Tapu Koko does present offensive pressure, but it does enough as a defensive pivot to still continue to do damage while putting Max in a good position, and I think it's very hard to match that. What he's doing right now is it's very hard to beat, and I'm not quite sure. On Brandon's side, the reads were necessary, but outside of the reads, if he doesn't have it, at that turn, he didn't really read the switches correctly and didn't do a whole lot of damage here. So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts. And he's, again, taking a lot of time to think about that one. His move time has gone to 3 seconds.
Yeah, a lot of time to think. As I'm not, he barely got that move selection in. Celesteela on Max's side, Max is just playing such a defensive game right now. Porygon 2 comes in, again, another defensive juggernaut on Max's side. Going to go ahead and get a download here. Going to download an attack boost, but we've already seen the fact that it has returned, so that's actually going to be beneficial to it. Tapu Lele protects itself, not going to want to get damaged by this Flare Blitz here, so good call from Brandon to protect. As Arcanine now goes for a Flare Blitz, going to target down what I believe is going to be that Celesteela slot. Unfortunately, now it's that Porygon 2. Not much damage at all. It does get a burn. Going to slowly chip away that Porygon 2, but Porygon 2 can just easily just recover that off.
It's true, but it is a return Porygon 2, so it does affect the return part. It does help against Tapu Lele. So in this case, I don't think it would KO, but it would do enough damage to Lele where maybe Life Orb could knock it out after a move. It does make a difference here. It's maybe not a big one, but cause, the burn damage nerf in this generation was down to 6%, so not quite as much as was Poison last game. Where it whittled down at Porygon a lot faster. But this position on the field, Tapu Lele and Arcanine probably cannot knock out the Porygon. If he wants to get Trick Room up, he probably can do it for free.
Tapu Lele gets to go for a Psychic here. In that Psychic train, enough to pick up the KO on that Arcanine. Big damage from that Tapu Lele. Again, a heavily offensive Tapu Lele that Brandon's using, kind of reflecting his playstyle as Porygon 2 goes for an Ice Beam here onto that Tapu Lele. Oh, gets a freeze. All right, Tapu Lele might be able to... Oh! Expecting a Trick Room maybe to go for the Roar?
Wow.
All right. Roar Arcanine, what a cool tech to be anti-Trick Room. And, looking at Brandon's team, you don't want to play in Trick Room at all, right?
No.
So that's one of his techs to counter Trick Room right there because of the priority brackets of Roar and Trick Room.
Yeah, and he has Taunt and Roar on the same team. Definitely has options for it. You're kind of questioning, how does he stop it? Well, there's your answer. The Roar Arcanine. I guess dogs roar.
Dogs do roar.
But... wow, the frozen Tapu Lele does not help him here.
This Arcanine's got a lot of bark.
Yeah. Yeah, that's maybe not a whole lot of bite, but it sure does bark.
No crunches, just roar.
Yep.
That's a dark type move of choice on this Arcanine.
Yep. Oh, man. So, Celesteela here getting a free switch and getting a little leftovers for free just because of the roar. Since Tapu Koko in and gets another run in for free. I'm not sure if that actually helped Brandon here. It was a high-risk, high-reward move, but the reward wasn't really there. The Tapu Koko is going to get a free hit on the Arcanine.
It's like an investment failure.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Cut your losses, file for bankruptcy.
Tapu Koko goes for the Thunderbolt in the electric terrain, targeting down that Arcanine. Unfortunately, Tapu Lele is still frozen solid. Arcanine goes for a Flare Blitz here. Going to target down this Tapu Koko. Is that going to be enough to activate the berry? It is going to be enough to activate the berry, actually, and going to heal itself back up.
Yeah. Good play. I think it puts him in a position to take another Thunderbolt, but the Leech Seed might be enough to nullify that. So it really depends on how he plays this one.
Yeah, unfortunately that Tapu Lele is still frozen. Brandon still does have a Pokemon advantage, though. He still has 4 Pokemon in comparison to the 3. He just needs to find a way to break through all this defensiveness. The Celesteela needs to get off the field, and this Tapu Lele is just a sitting duck.
Yeah. And it's... well, it's not a duck. We should...
well, to specify, yeah, we've had this debate earlier on in the season. What is a duck? Tapu Lele is not a duck.
No, but it is a sitting one. I don't know if he switches this out here. That's the problem with freezes. It's very, very hard to play around.
You just don't know when it's going to thaw.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fire type with Flare Blitz or water type with Scald, but Tapu Lele is neither.
Yeah, but Garchomp here is a good switch for Brandon if he does have it in the back. It's something that you can switch in because we know Tapu Koko is probably locked into the Thunderbolt. So in this case, Celesteela would have to reseed the Arcanine for Max to benefit off of this play if he does switch it. He could also switch Lele. This might be a case where Max goes for the Lele expecting a switch. I would expect a double from Brandon here, and if Max wants to read it,
ooh, time ran out. I'm not sure if Brandon got his move in.
It looked like he was on the second Pokemon.
All right.
Yep.
All right, yeah, he switches. So Brandon is cutting it so close to the wire with his move selection. Garchomp going to switch in, possibly trying to take this Thunderbolt. Does take it pretty well as Tapu Lele continues to just sit there like a sitting duck, frozen in time. Heavy Slam from this Celesteela. Going to target down this Tapu Lele. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know about that.
Don't know how I feel.
Right?
Yeah, like that might have... well, it does
give
it
a beast boost.
Yeah.
Going to go ahead and boost the defense.
So
good
not Fire
information
Fang.
right there. No Fire Fangs for Garchomp.
Well, actually, I don't know. That it just gets really weird now. Not the battlefield, but the rest of everything
Battlefield's
else.
not going to get weird at all. Tapu Lele got knocked out.
Yeah, but I think that maybe he was thinking a switch was coming, but Buzzwole here, this is really interesting. The if the Celesteela doesn't have Flamethrower, it probably does. We haven't seen it yet, but if it doesn't, that Buzzwole's
going to flex on this Tapu Koko.
Yeah.
But again, Buzzwole is not as specially bulky. As we've been suspecting, this Tapu Koko might be choice specs, so it might be locked into Thunderbolt.
Yeah, and if that's the case, he has to either decide, well, is Buzzwole going to take the damage or is Arcanine going to take the damage? I don't know what you do here if that's the case. There's a Porygon in the back. It is burned. You probably want the Buzzwole for that, but what do you do against the Celesteela in the endgame if Garchomp, maybe has Swords Dance and Fire Fang? In that case, you probably are fine, but...
Well, it's the Porygon 2 in the back, not the Arcanine, right?
Yeah, Porygon 2 in the back, so that's why you want the Buzzwole there.
Yep, Tapu Koko has to switch out. Porygon 2 is going to come in. Is Buzzwole going to do some work here and flex all over Max Douglas's team? Porygon 2 gets a download boost, going to go ahead and boost the special attack. Going to increase the power of those Ice Beams. As Arcanine comes in, going to go for an Intimidate. Not going to matter too much. I guess weakens the Heavy Slams and the return. But I think that Porygon 2 is just going to have to go for Ice Beams at this point.
Yeah, it did pretty well last time.
Yep.
Got a freeze.
Buzzwole goes for that Poison Jab onto that Porygon 2. No, not Intimidated. Still not doing much damage at all. As Celesteela sets up a Leech Seed onto that Arcanine, which was that Garchomp slot. So now the Celesteela setting up for the end game.
Yeah, looks like he's got to go Celesteela or got to go home. Or at least to game 3. But in this case, I don't think there's a way for him to do much about the Celesteela unless that's a Swords Dance Garchomp, and maybe his goal is to preserve that. Maybe keep the Garchomp in the back, wait for the Celesteela, get it to +6, and then party hard. But here Buzzwole probably knocks out the Porygon, and if it knocks out the Porygon, if it can survive long enough to knock out the Tapu Koko with getting Garchomp back in, it's slightly in his favor, but I can't tell. Like, it's just there's a lot of things that we have to see another turn or two play out before we can really decide.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the Celesteela is that the fact that it got that defense boost. There's 3 physical attackers left on Brandon's side. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
We've seen this before in the round 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we saw that.
We saw this before.
Yep. Yeah, it's. Yeah, I don't know. If you're just gonna take out the Porygon and hope and see what happens next.
Celesteela protects. Going to try to get back, do a little bit of chip damage because of that Leech Seed. Buzzwole goes for the superpower into that Celesteela slot. Not that Porygon 2 slot, as Arcanine goes for a Wild Charge into that Celesteela slot. Porygon 2 gets to go for an attack here, but it's just going to set up a Trick Room.
Wow, that
could have been a knocked out Porygon 2.
That could have been a knocked out Porygon 2. But
this is actually better position, though, because,
the Tapu Koko in the back. He doesn't want to take damage from that, and I think that's the one thing that can do it, so... Now it all comes down to Celesteela. This is Max's full faith in Celesteela. There's nothing but that Celesteela right now.
If there's any Pokemon to put faith in, it probably had to be that Celesteela, right?
Yeah. It's... I don't know at this point. The Porygon probably... gets knocked out from Superpower. The Tapu Koko comes in, probably Poison Jabs that. Doesn't really have any way to protect himself, so it's basically, Celesteela versus the world.
How many times have we seen this before?
A
lot.
Too many.
Yeah. This is the format.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. Celesteela just doing Celesteela things. Just like Xerneas is doing Xerneas things. Smeargle doing Smeargle things.
It's a little different, though.
It's a little different, though, yeah.
I feel like this is a way you can play around it. You can definitely have some foresight. The game doesn't change in one turn. You have many turns to prepare for that.
And Porygon 2 goes for the Ice Beam here. Going to hit this Buzzwole. Not much damage at all. Buzzwole just flexing. And Celesteela reveals Flamethrower. That's pretty good to know. Is it going to be enough to pick up the KO on this Buzzwole? No, not at all. As Arcanine goes for a Wild Charge here, it looks like the endgame is just trying to knock out the Celesteela as soon as possible. As Arcanine takes damage from that recoil, and Buzzwole now goes for a superpower into this. Porygon 2 picks up the KO, going to get a Beast Boost. Going to boost its attack stat after the attack drop from the superpower. And now Tapu Koko is forced to come in, and Buzzwole is going to be faster because of Trick Room.
Porygon faints and does the humanity pose.
Buzz.
Yeah. And +1 attack here.
Well, neutral since it got dropped.
Oh, neutral, yep.
Since it got dropped from superpower.
So, interesting. I guess that helps Buzzwole out with it, but Arcanine already popped its berry. So, basically just take out the Tapu Koko and cross your fingers.
Yeah. He has it. The Poison Jab at that range should be enough to pick up the KO.
But it was the Celesteela was faster than the Buzzwole, so
true.
And the Flamethrower probably not going to knock out from this range, but there's always the critical hit. There's always the burn. There's ways.
Rolls as well.
Rolls, yeah.
Rolls as well. That's huge. So, boy, I really hope Brandon has Swords Dance on that Garchomp in the back, and that's what he's waiting for.
Yeah. It'd be a cool end of the game, especially the way this one's gone. But we don't know. That's it. We know it's Fire Fang, we know it's Earthquake, and we know it's Protect. So
and it's holding a ground EMZ. That's all we know about it. Still cool things to be revealed about this Garchomp. We're all excited to watch and see if Celesteela is going to eke this one out or if Garchomp's going to say otherwise. Celesteela now goes for the Flamethrower onto that Buzzwole. Is it enough to pick up the KO? It is not. Buzzwole hangs on, and now Arcanine goes for a Wild Charge here, targeting down the Celesteela, chipping away at it. But Celesteela, thanks to that defense boost, so bulky, and Arcanine barely hangs on. Buzzwole now goes for a Superpower, going to target down that Celesteela instead, not hitting that Tapu Koko. That's okay because Garchomp's still in the back.
It is, but...
I'd still rather see that Tapu Koko knocked out.
I mean, at this... Well, he does knock out the Tapu Koko with an Earthquake here. He had a 100% chance of not getting knocked out, but Celesteela does get to set up a Leech Seed on you for free.
Yeah.
So he can knock it out with Fire Fang, but will he be able to go fast enough to take it out? Will he be able to set up fast enough if he does have Swords Dance to be able to take out the Celesteela? We're going to find out real fast.
Don't you just love Pokemon?
Oh, you gotta. And especially, it is a game of learning, or it's playing to things that you don't quite know. It's you have to play to assumptions. You have to assume that it's Swords Dance. Assume, especially as a commentator, but not only as a commentator, but as a player. Max has to just assume it's Swords Dance. He just has to assume certain things, and that's why best of 3 is kind of a blessing for us. It's
you get to reveal information, you get to take information, you got to preserve your information. It's a game of information.
Yeah, game of information, and sometimes you just got to guess what the information is.
So right here, definitely try to pick up the KO on that Koko, and then maybe if he has Fire Fang, or no, we know he has Fire Fang. If he has Swords Dance, then it's a little bit easier for Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. And
of course, Fire Fang can still miss.
It can, but it can also flinch.
And burn.
And burn, yeah.
And burn. Celesteela protects.
Oh, wow, that's...
Okay.
Maybe he expected the Fire Fang? Oh, no, that's not a Fire Fang.
That's the Tectonic Rage right there. Going to go ahead and send Tapu Koko back to the Pokeball because it's going to get knocked out.
Yeah. This animation will go for a while, and...
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, we don't exactly know the item on that Tapu Koko. I'm pretty sure it's choice specs.
Yeah.
But just in case Tapu Koko decided to protect, get the damage out onto that Tapu Koko.
Yeah, no, it's definitely... I mean, you're not doing anything to Celesteela. That thing can't use Roost. It can't get grounded. There's no.
It's not Skarmory.
Yeah.
Wrong Steel Flying type here, Zach.
Yeah. Sorry, looked a little similar. I mean, it can't. That was good play. Burn that, and then, I mean, this turn, dude.
Swords Dance. We're gonna see the Swords Dance, I bet.
Do you see the Swords Dance? Or
I see a Swords Dance.
Do you
coming.
protect?
It's a victory dance. Why would you protect?
And then you go for the Fire Fangs. I don't know. If he doesn't have Swords Dance, that's his play.
It's either Swords Dance or Poison Jab.
Yeah, but so if we see a Protect here, we can almost be sure that it's not Swords Dance. But if we do see him move Swords Dance, it's you find out right here.
You think maybe if it's not Swords Dance, then he has to try to just stall it out, right? He has to.
Yeah, he has to just Fire
and hope that he can knock it out with Fire Fang as he sets up Leech Seeds and just wait one more time. Maybe that's why Brandon's taking a long time to make moves. Who knows?
Maybe.
Actually, never mind. I forgot I forgot that it's different. It's 50 minutes total.
Yep. Fire.
Just kidding, everybody.
There it is.
There it is, a Swords Dance. All right. He has what he needs to be able to pick up the KO here. Going to set up Swords Dance. Going to try to bypass that Beast Boost that it got a couple turns ago after picking up the KO on that Tapu Lele. So Brandon waiting till the last second to show that he has what it takes to take this game.
Isn't that amazing, though? Isn't that an amazing thing about Pokemon? It takes the entire game for the one game-changing moment to actually come to light. You can kind of expect it all game, and then, I mean, we're, what, 10, 15 minutes into this game? And there it is. That's the one thing we've been waiting for the entire game. So a lot of suspense there, and it added up to something. Yeah,
and, Brandon played that to the absolute... All right, goes for another Swords Dance just to make sure.
Yeah.
That's fine. Celesteela will most likely not be able to pick up the one-hit KO anyways. Going for a burn here. Going for a burn. Flamethrower hits that Garchomp. Going to try to pick up a burn here. No burn.
Ooh.
All right. So just go for the Fire Fang. Don't risk anything. Go for the Fire Fangs now.
Well, yeah, but it does depend on Cal, because I don't know if he knows, +1 defense, Celesteela on Max's spread. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this, but got to go for that Fire Fang.
Yeah, maybe he was also expecting Celesteela to protect that turn, too.
Yeah.
So
maybe he expects it here and goes for a third Swords Dance.
That'd be mad.
Yeah.
That'd be mad.
If he gets it on the Protect, the crowd goes wild. There's a large crowd watching. It's probably about 50 people, 40, 50 people.
Yeah. Again, going back to there's a Protect. I don't know. Brandon could possibly go for a Swords Dance.
Did he do it?
No, goes for the Fire Fang that turn. That was a turn to Swords Dance right there.
Yeah. That would have made everybody go nuts.
Yeah, but see, the thing with Brandon is, he identified his win condition. Porygon 2 being in there was kind of risky, right?
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to sacrifice your Garchomp. That's your win condition versus Celesteela. Good on Brandon to identify his win con from
sure.
afar.
Yeah, that was a long, stretched out game to play that through that win con with, but he found it.
And I bet Max is kind of kicking himself for setting up that trick room.
Yeah, definitely didn't help him. Well, here we are.
Yep, there's the Fire Fang on that Celesteela. Massive damage right there.
Oh!
Gets the burn. Gets a burn. Going to slowly chip away at the Celesteela as well. Celesteela goes for a flamethrower here. Going to hit this Garchomp. Isn't going to be able to get a burn itself. No! Gets another burn. Burned Pokemon everywhere on the field. Okay. All right.
Oh, my goodness. What are we... I mean, we're at the point now where he can't hit Celesteela hard enough to knock it out. Does it protect here? Does it... This is an interesting turn, because if he Swords Dances again, maybe he does, but I think that Leech Seed does too much.
Brandon... Oh, man.
Wow.
Brandon might have this stolen away from him.
Yeah, that might have been stolen, but he didn't need the burn, but definitely... Max definitely did.
Yeah. All right. Celesteela protects. Brandon needs to set up a Swords Dance here.
If he Swords Dances, this gets interesting.
Oh, no. Man. Goes for a Fire Fang instead. Not risking it. Should have used that turn of Swords Dance. So Brandon, unfortunately, Fire Fang at the wrong and most inopportune times. So now Brandon probably has to rely on a critical hit.
Yep, that's his only out here. I think if you're in a Max situation, you have to double protect.
Yeah, that's Max's odds right there. All right, so here it comes down to the last turn of the game here. Brandon, is this going to be stolen away from him? This was his game to win.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the odds.
Celesteela protects, fails. Garchomp goes for the Fire Fang, connects onto the Celesteela. Needs a critical hit. No! Unfortunate for Brandon. Max Douglas from British Columbia, from Victoria.
Yeah, 2-0.
Narrowly defeating Brandon Tutenhagen here at the Oregon Regional Championships. Unfortunate for Brandon. He had the win con.
Yeah,
he had it.
It would have been fun to see that go to Game 3. He definitely saw the games from afar.
Wow. All right. So,
yeah.
Oh, man, Brandon, you had the Swords Dance Garchomp. You played to your win con. Great job identifying it, but unfortunately, Max just showing the power of Celesteela.
Yeah. Yeah, burn for burn, and man, I don't know what else you can do. I feel like that was a pretty well played set on both sides. The trick room was a little weird. And then there was the one turn, other turns. But, I think Max's team had the advantage overall. But Brandon played his way out of it, and he gave himself a chance. And, sometimes it just doesn't shake out your way.
No. He set up the win con, but I guess he just got burned. Oh, all right. I'm done with those bad jokes, man. I'm done with those bad jokes. But, Max played, I think he kind of adjusted to Brandon's playstyle a little bit. In game one, he's like, okay, this guy's trying to make these predictions on my switches. I gotta slow it down a little bit. Mm-hmm. All right. And Max, game two was just Brandon's to win.
Yeah,
he had it.
Everything was there. I mean, because sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and I think Brandon goes into that game taking that win condition every time. If you have that good of a chance to win the game, just don't get burned. Hit the Fire Fang. It's fine. You kind of go, well, what can you do? And,
yeah.
I mean, he's got to feel good about his play. Just can't feel good about the result, and move on to the next one.
I think the key moments there were just some of the turns where Max was going to protect. That's when Brandon picked the most inopportune time to go on the offensive. Those could have been like, I understand where Brandon's coming from. Like, that's safe, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, I have 2 Swords Dances up. I think I'm okay now to start going on the offensive. But it's just so unfortunate for Brandon to start going on the offensive, but then Max start going on the defensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it changed at the right time, and yeah, it kind of explains itself.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, unpredictable? I don't know. Like, you got to not play in such a linear fashion, I guess.
Yeah, you got to mix it up.
Yeah. Max did that.
Yeah, he did. And just when you think he's going to do one thing, it kind of change the tempo on you. And it's almost interesting. You have to be instinctive enough to know like when the opponent's going to expect that too. It goes, all these layers of it. But yeah, as far as like the rhythm and flow of the game, Max seemed to feel it out. I think Brandon had a good feel for it game 2.
Yeah, he did.
But again, we just discussed. can't always go your way. But he knows what he has to do with this team. It seems like they both generally understand their team.
Yeah.
It's good to see that with players, and it's fun to commentate with that. When the players know their team really well, and you can just analyze.
You know what is actually the play of the game? When that Celestial knocked out that Tapu Lele, and we're just like, why did he do that? And then next thing you know, it just pays off so well.
Yeah, the defense boost.
The defense boost just, it's crazy to say this, but the defense boost actually put pressure on Brandon.
Yeah.
He's like, I have 3 physical attackers, so what do? I got to play to my end game, I got to set up my Garchomp, do all sorts of things. That defense boost paid off so well for Max.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, knocking out a frozen Pokemon won him the game.
Oh, yeah.
Not often you get to say that. So
a frozen Pokemon that's just sat on the field for 2 turns doing nothing.
Yeah.
That has no way of thawing besides a random chance or Guys, tweet at us. Tell us your thoughts on what just happened at Nugget Bridge. Zach, any other closing thoughts on that round?
Oh, not really. I mean, 2 good players. I'm glad we got to see them play.
Yeah. He was so excited to be put on stream. Brandon
Really?
was, yeah. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and wait for the rest of the Swiss Round 2 to finish. And when we return, more action from Round 3 here at the 2017 Portland, Oregon Regional Championships. Stay tuned.